Quick disclaimer before the video starts. I have not finished Lords of the Fallen yet. As of writing this, I am about 15 to 20 hours into the game. So I've played a lot of Dark Souls games. I've played Lies of P, Nioh 1 and 2, and I absolutely love Bloodborne. It's one of my favorite games, I love it so much, I even have a Bloodborne tattoo on my arm. I've played a lot of Souls-like, both really good, like Nioh 2 or Bloodborne, and really bad, like Wo Long and Bleak Faith on release. It's a lot better now, but it still isn't a 10 out of 10 game, I would say. I really like these games, and I have some history with Lords of the Fallen, as I've not only played, but finished the first game. Twice for some god knows reason, yet I'm not sure if I'll be finishing the Lords of the Fallen reboot. Let's start with some things I really like about the game. First up, the visuals. I love the way this game looks. For me, it's the perfect mix between medieval low fantasy setting and an incredibly edgy dark themes that activates my inner 14-year-old. I also really like the way Umbral and Axiom stand in contrast with each other. My favorite thing about gameplay, however, is by far the wither mechanic. So every time you block, parry, or get hit by Umbral attacks, it takes away some of your health, like in every other game. But unlike those games, that health is not gone entirely, as you are able to reclaim that lost health by damaging enemies. However, should you get hit, the entire white bar on your health bar, aka your withered health, will be gone with no way to reclaim it outside of healing yourself. The system reminds me a lot of Bloodborne, although I actually like the system in Lords of the Fallen a lot better, as your withered health does not vanish over time and you reclaim a lot more of your health per hit than in Bloodborne. I also adore the way magic and ranged is implemented into the game. What I always disliked in games like Dark Souls was using magic and ranged items, as the ranged items are always one use and take away slots in your quick bar, and the overall clunkiness of using magic really takes away from that feeling of being an awesome, powerful mage. The way Lords of the Fallen seamlessly integrates these systems is handled excellently, although I wish there was a way to regain mana or ammunition outside of one-use consumables like in Dark Souls 3 with the Ash and Estus flask. Now for some things I didn't like so much. The general combat feeling, I personally think it's really difficult to describe, as it feels simultaneously way too fast, yet the fights take way too long through the sheer amount of trash the game throws at you at every opportunity. Every fight is some mix-up of multiple trash enemies to slow you down, mixed with fast, high damage melee enemies that rush you, and throw in one or two ranged guys for good measures. Now pack all of that into a tight, long corridor or a big open area and boom, that right there is 80% of fights in this game so far. On a personal note, I hate that staggering enemies is so fucking inconsistent. I mean really, I use big two-handed swords in games like Dark Souls. And part of my strategy has always been, if you manage to time it right and you get a charged heavy in, the enemies stagger usually. And if you time it right, you can interrupt an enemy attack with the stagger, but enemies stagger so inconsistently in Lords of the Fallen that is just not an option. And in general, you stagger way too easily, even when you're wearing the heaviest armor with the heaviest weapon, charging a heavy attack. Even a little bitch that does like 10 damage can rip you right out of your combo, while you charge a heavy attack with a 600-pound hammer. It's heavier than your mom, and you hit him and he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever, let me just one combo you to death. There's also, I found a lot of random enemy difficulty spikes, and I don't mean like different placements or more enemies or different enemies, I just mean they're the same enemies with more health and they just one-shot you now. Have fun, I guess. It didn't really make sense to me why or how. I don't have anything against enemies coming back later stronger, be that in different variants. I can also forgive, the same enemy just being stronger in later areas, but no, they're in the same area. You just walk up a ladder and now they take 3 hits more and deal triple the damage. Difficulty in general often feels incredibly cheap as the game insists on either overwhelming you with enemies or ambushing you around literally every single corner with enemies that are just waiting for the opportunity to ruin your sense of wonder and exploration by constantly crashing your party. And don't get me fucking started on the randomly spawning item mimics. Whoever thought of that, and excuse my language for a second, sag mal, hast du ein Rad ab oder so? Also jetzt mal ganz ehrlich, du glaubst doch, du bist besonders witzig mit dem Scheiß, oder? Schiebst dir sonst wohin, du Arsch. On another note, the bosses so far were all pitifully easy, except for that one guy in the swamp area, on the horse with the halberd. The most difficult part about his fight was the lock-on system, because he goes underground for some of his attacks, and it just takes away your lock-on. Then make him jump out, do an incredibly quick attack, and boom, you didn't even see him coming. Have fun. I also think that there's two areas in the game, the Pilgrim's Purge and the Swamp, so far were both the least interesting and the most aggravating areas in the game, as the game immediately throws you into large open spaces with lots of tight walkways and enemies with push attacks and a poison bomb, respectively. Now, why did I call this game the good, the bad, and the wasted? You've heard some good, you've heard some bad, and here's where I really show my disappointment for this game. The devs had a lot of great ideas, and the design team for items, weapons, and armor, and the environment itself, they really did an outstanding job. But unfortunately, that's where the realization of this title's true potential stops. The dual word mechanic is, in my opinion, incredibly unique and cool, and Umbral looks amazing, but using the lamp just isn't fun, especially in combat. I cannot stand the boosted enemies. More often than not, this mechanic is just used to make already brutal trash fights even more aggravating and annoying. It also doesn't help that most often these boosted enemies are ranged or special enemies that are already annoying to fight as they're surrounded by a lot of garbage everywhere. I also think the excellent ranged system and item system gets bogged down immensely by having to rely on one-off consumables in order to make it viable, as more often than not, mana or ammo will be drained dry by the time you finish off a single trash fight. I really wanted to love Lords of the Fallen. But the combat and encounter design really drags the game into the pile of shit the first game took, and that the reboot so desperately wanted to climb out of. In conclusion, even though I said mostly negative things about Lords of the Fallen in this video, I don't think the game is absolute garbage. It certainly isn't great, and especially not for first-time Souls players. There is fun to be had in Lords of the Fallen. Unfortunately, that fun is just buried under a pile of bad decisions by the dev team. That's it for me. Have a great day, everyone.